Hi everyone, I'm Reena Dayal. I'm the founder and CEO of Quantum Ecosystems and Technology Council of India, also known as QETCI. As we examined the quantum ecosystem in India, we were struck by the fact that in order to be able to make progress in quantum hardware development in India, we need to re-examine the past and understand the reasons why hardware development on the electronics and the semiconductor side has not taken off to the extent that we wanted to. What were the historical reasons? What were the policy reasons? And the purpose of examining all of this is to kind of look forward and say, what is it that we can do to change the status for quantum computing? How can we ensure that there is a possibility to scale up quantum hardware development in India? So we have this fellowship and the fellow who's working with us is Padmapriya Mohan. She's going to be working on a study which goes deeper into this subject so that the suitable recommendations can be made for the ecosystem. But she's also interviewing a lot of people in the process, especially people who are playing a key role in defining the future for quantum hardware in India. This is one of the series of interviews that we will be conducting. Over to Padmapriya now.
Hello, everyone. Namaste, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Priya. I'm a policy fellow with Quantum Ecosystems and Technology Council of India, and I will be your host today. And I'm joined by someone regarded as the father of Indian hardware. We're grateful to have with us today Padmabhushan Awardee Dr. Ajai Chowdhry, who's the co-founder of HCL and chair of the Mission Governing Board for India's National Quantum Mission and chairman of the EPIC Foundation. He is also a distinguished fellow at Niti Aayog, fellow of the Indian National Academy for Engineers, and has been nominated by METI as a member to the advisory board of the India Semiconductor Mission. And he has worked across industry, policy, institution building, including chairing a Government of India task force in 2009, which was focused on stimulating growth in IT and particularly electronics hardware manufacturing. So he's seen India's hardware story up close. Thank you so much, Dr. Chowdhry, for making time to chat with us today.
Good to be here.
Thank you. In this conversation, we will focus on understanding what decisions defined India's approach to hardware development in the past and what this legacy means for India's ambitions in quantum computing hardware and future technological sovereignty. So let's take a look back at history. Dr. Chowdhry, back when you were speaking so strongly about rebuilding Indian hardware capabilities, what was driving that urgency for you? And why do you think that pro-hardware sentiment wasn't as widely shared?
Well, actually, if you look at the history of Indian hardware, it all started somewhere in the late 70s and middle 70s and late 70s. And there were many companies that actually ventured into hardware. HCL was one of the foremost companies to start the business in 1976. Now, as we grew till about I would say till 2000, there was a reasonably good support available for the growth that was there. And there were no there were impediments always, but there were no real serious impediments to growth. Okay. So the industry was left on its own to grow. And yes, there were some issues in terms of duty structures, etc., which needed to be corrected time and again. Every budget you would have something or the other happening, which was not good for the hardware industry, but the association would actually step in and get it corrected. But come 1999, the government decided to sign the WTO ITA agreement,
right.
Which got implemented in 2005. Now, that is when the situation changed. Because at that stage, it was decided that India would open up the complete market for imports.
Right.
And that imports could come in at zero duty. This was under Western Hemisphere pressure because they wanted their products to come into India. And therefore, there was a lot of pressure for us to sign. And the signing was done without actually consulting the industry.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is when the sort of the downfall of the hardware industry started.
Okay. Um, and this WTO agreement, not every country had signed it, or some signed later on with
Yeah, some
certain.
people delayed it, like
Okay.
Brazil and China delayed it. So they
Uh-huh.
got more time to develop their industry. See, the
Okay.
industry has to be prepared for an opening up. If you're opening up, you should prepare the industry, give it 10 years of time and help it create the environment.
Okay.
So somewhere in the early even at somewhere around 2000, we had actually created a task force at
Right.
that time also under Jaswant Singh, and that report was also created to prepare India for the change that will happen. But unfortunately, that report never got implemented. So
No.
the country entered the WTO timeframe without any preparation.
Okay. Okay. Can I just ask, just to understand the scenario better? The WTO agreement was in 1999, was when we signed it. Before that, was there some growth already in the hardware space? Were we making progress?
Yes, we were. We were making pretty good progress. There were
Okay.
many companies out there making computers, making peripherals. All of that was happening quite well. But suddenly, when this decision was taken, I stepped in and I went to the government and said, look, you guys are looking at just software. Why are you not looking at hardware? And then the committee, the task force, decided to look at hardware also. Otherwise, it was only looking at improving the software situation.
Okay.
So that sort of pushed the government to approve that. But then when the report got written, it was not implemented.
Okay. I
So we
see.
lost about 5-6 years at that
Okay.
stage.
Okay. So we did have BEL and ECIL and organizations like this, and also a lot of public sector hardware. But
Yeah.
then, so my understanding is that they had limited success. And one I understand is because we now, because of ratifying WTO agreement, we were import dependent. But apart from this, were there other reasons that these public sector hardware institutions had limited success?
Well, actually, public sector hardware institutions typically focused on the higher end of the market, number one.
Mm-hmm.
They did not participate at the microcomputer and the mini and that entry level situation.
Okay, all
And
right.
the entry level is where the market started to grow. As a matter of fact, HCL created that market.
Right,
When
right.
HCL started, there were just 100 computers in the country. Now, the public sector undertakings focused on slightly higher end products, and they were not really focused on selling into private sector or SMEs. They were basically selling into government and large institutions. So it
Right.
was a very limited entry for them. And that is the reason they did not succeed.
Okay. Can I ask, and this is from my limited knowledge and reading, when you study case studies of, for instance, the semiconductor industry in other countries, for instance, the US or Japan, you see that there is the government is sort of, defense or military is the first buyer. There is that strong first buyer present in the ecosystem. In our case also, is it true that there was a strong first buyer, or but that was not sufficient? What was that like?
See, as part of the report that we wrote in 2009,
Yeah.
uh, task force report,
Mm-hmm.
our strong recommendation was that there should be a preference for
Right.
buying Indian products.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that got completely diluted.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is a government, many government circulars on this issue since then
Right.
to
Right.
now, even today, market access is very minimal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that has been a very major problem for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Because in all other countries, especially China, for example, they
Mm-hmm.
created Huawei, for example, from ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Why did that happen? Because they gave all the business to Huawei. The same thing happened in the United States, where DARPA would give a challenge to anybody,
Right.
and then they would give, if the challenge was done and they actually delivered the product, they would give business and give business in abundance, not just one order or two orders. So this is something that as a country we never actually implemented. This market access was absolutely essential for growing the domestic market.
Okay. All right. This this paradigm of the government giving a challenge is interesting, and I will bookmark that because I think we'd like to talk about that in the quantum context. But then, since you've mentioned your 2009 task force report and you've mentioned one policy recommendation, which was preferential access, is there any other policy recommendation from that report that you wrote that is relevant even to today's context, do you think?
Well, actually, we had very clearly mentioned in 2009 that we should be in semiconductors.
Yeah, okay.
And that never got implemented. Reason for it is that the kind of policies that were made would not attract people to come to India for semiconductors. Okay? Because the policy that has now come up in the last 5 to 7 years is completely radically different. Here, you're actually saying we'll give 50% of the capex to anybody who comes.
Okay.
That time, it was not even thought of. So that is where the challenge was. There was not enough incentive for people to come to manufacture semiconductors in India. So I think that is the main problem that has occurred in not having semiconductors. The other thing that we had mentioned, which was very critical, was the fact that we were looking at the oil import of India.
Right.
And we had clearly stated that at some stage, electronics imports will be higher than the oil bill. And therefore, we felt that electronics should be treated as a meta resource. See, because what we said was that electronics is there in any product you can think of.
Right.
And if it is a meta resource, it deserves completely different treatment. So one of the things that we had recommended was that create an electronics mission, just like the space mission. Again, that was not accepted. So, only part of that report happened, and that too not fully at all. So it's actually a situation of electronics being neglected for a very, very long time.
All right. All right. Okay. You've shared with us some of the history.
For example, I must tell
Yeah.
you, I will not name the person, but I met a minister when he took over as IT minister. And I went and met him and said, hardware deserves a lot of attention. And the answer I got, let China do the hardware, we will do the software. That was our, approach to thinking. That software is good enough, hardware is not good enough. And the point that I was making is that software and hardware are two sides of the same coin.
Right.
If you don't do one, you're not going to be just successful in doing only one. And today it shows up clearly that we have missed the complete bus in terms of electronics for many years. It's only the last 5 to 7 years that something is happening.
All right. And so this attitude towards preferring progress in software, did that directly impede our progress in hardware?
Yeah, because there was no support from the government at all. With the ITA, WTO coming in, zero duty imports, then how are you going to actually support the domestic industry? Domestic industry was left on its own to suffer, as I said. So slowly, that industry kept dying.
Okay, and naively, I'm just going to put to you, having signed the WTO ITA and imports being so easy for us, for software institutes and organizations that develop software, for them to import hardware and then to work on that and then export software, that must have been a pretty advantageous thing for them. So I get
It was.
Yeah.
They were very happy with that decision.
Right.
They were very happy with that decision, but they didn't think of hardware business at all. So they were focused on themselves. They were not focused on looking at the rest of the IT industry. IT is not just software.
In terms of policy, then, what would have been the right way to balance these things?
what was done last 5 to 7 years should have been done 20 years ago.
Okay, I see. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah,
Just
basically because look at the semiconductor situation.
Mm-hmm.
Today, when the semiconductor plants are being coming into the country, they're coming in because of our incentive schemes. Our incentive schemes are so aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we said, tell them that, okay, you put 50%, we'll put 50%.
Right.
Previous schemes were, okay, we'll put 35% or 25%, you come in and put 75%. Only when you come in and put in 75%, later on, we will give you the balance. When this new scheme came in with the NDA government, they openly said from the beginning, the day you put your 50%, we'll put our 50%.
I see.
So it made it easier for them in terms of ROI.
Right, certainly.
And
Okay.
then the interesting thing that has happened is that
Mm-hmm.
all the state governments also, perked up, and they started giving 25% extra. So somebody who had to come and implement a semiconductor plant had to only put in 25 to 30% of the capex. Rest was paid for by the country.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I can see how this can really attract a lot of
Yeah.
investment. But
Yeah.
then I wonder, in hardware, and I also want to understand from you what this means in terms of quantum for you. But what does sovereignty mean then? Because is it make in India entirely full stack end to end, or is it something else? Because we're speaking now of companies coming and investing.
See, tech sovereignty is a very big issue.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are cornered.
Mm-hmm.
All software products are American,
Mm-hmm.
mostly,
Right.
and all hardware products are Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
What do we make?
Mm-hmm.
We have not paid attention to creating a domestic product industry. We
Right.
focused being on a services business. So
Mm-hmm.
the software business was totally services. There was no product orientation. So as a result of that, the only product that we created was DPI. And that's it. It's a world-class product, I would say. If we can create DPI, why can't we create an ERP product? Why can't we create a email system? All these things were possible, but they were not even thought of. Suddenly, when the geopolitics has changed today, everybody is thinking about taking care of themselves. And therefore, the word technology sovereignty has become a very big word. And the technology sovereignty today means that step by step, we should create our own operating system. We should create our own email systems. We create our own ERP, etc., etc., etc. And similarly in hardware, we should go from chip to system.
Okay.
Today, if you look at our thinking that has been there, is completely oriented towards, semiconductor manufacturing. We also need to put a lot of attention towards design to manufacturing in semiconductors. So in the first scheme of ISM 1.0, there was a DLI scheme. It was a very limited scheme for creating startups to do design in India, chip design. Even then, there were 20 odd companies, and out of which 8 or 10 have done good work. So what that shows is that it is possible to do much, much more. Today, our situation is that we import literally every chip from China. And as we import all the chips from China, it's a security hazard.
Right.
Because chips from China will carry a trapdoor. And therefore, all these back doors are sending data back to China. So even if you look at China itself, China does this to others. Therefore, what China did 3 years ago is that they banned use of foreign PCs. They banned the use of foreign phones in government offices. But we have done nothing of the sort.
Okay. It will take us some time though to be able to even get to a level. So
But
practically
we
then,
can do it step by step.
okay.
What happened was that about 2 years ago, I went and met the Honorable Minister, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, and I explained the problem to him. And And I said, sir, we need to definitely do design as well as manufacturing.
Right.
And we must do system and chip. So he agreed. And a task force was set up. A task force report was presented. That report is to be implemented now.
Okay.
It is not yet implemented. And I'm hoping that ISM 2.0 will result in implementing of that report, and more funding will be provided towards design. And as we keep on making chips which are required for India, then as we make each chip, we should ban the Chinese chip. It should not be that overnight you ban all the Chinese chips.
No. Okay.
You should replace one by one. And we made a list of 30 chips and 30 systems. So unless you make a system, who will buy the chip?
Right.
So, and if it is a system that is made, then the chip will get sold and then the chip will get manufactured. So the fabs also get the benefit of a design being done in India.
Okay. I understand this even from a quantum perspective. What you're talking about is in the ecosystem.
Full ecosystem, end-to-end ecosystem.
Yeah.
End-to-end.
Okay, I understand. Can you now break this down for us in terms of quantum? So if I'm speaking about quantum technology sovereignty, what does that look like for us? Because again, there's the development of hardware, but then we have several different kinds of qubit modalities. We have enabling technologies, we have components, rare earths. There is the supply chain itself is quite complex. So what does it mean to you?
For us to have technology sovereignty in quantum, our attempt is to make component by component for computers.
Okay.
Computers.
Okay.
So IISC, when they gave out the startup program, they identified which components are required for quantum computers. And the objective that we have set for ourselves is that we should look at the full supply chain.
Okay.
Right from the highest end of component to the lowest end of component. Today, everything is imported. Now, that is something that we must do, because that is what will enable us to be self-sufficient 3 to 4 years from now. Today, we are totally dependent on imports of all components.
All right.
So dilution refrigerator, for example.
Right.
I mean, there's only one source in the world.
Yeah.
Why can't we make a dilution refrigerator in India and supply to the rest of the world? So not only is the opportunity there for us to create for India, we have an opportunity to create for the world. So that, to my mind, is the most critical aspect of technology sovereignty in quantum computing. The good news is that we started with 7 qubit previous year. This year we'll be at 64 qubit. And hopefully in the next 2 years, we should move on to 300 to 500 to 1000. So our direction is very clear in terms of achieving the highest end of computing in quantum, but different qubit technologies, obviously.
Right.
But some will be farther, some will be faster, some will be slower.
But the strategy that you recommend and that NQM, I suppose, is taking is still diversifying and looking at all of these different technologies? All right.
See, the good news is that we had a pre-quantum program of DST, which created a lot of capability. So when we started out 2 years ago, 2 years and a few months ago, we had 750 scientists working on quantum, which is a very nice number. And another 300 odd working in startups.
Right.
So which country can boast of so many scientists in quantum? Very few. Most of the countries in Europe will have 100, 200. So that is our biggest strength that we have created. Now that strength has to be converted from lab to market. So when we gave funding to all the T-hubs in the country, the computing T-hub in Bombay, in Bangalore, the sensing hub in Bombay, the networking and communication hub in IIT Madras, and devices one in Delhi, we specified that your funding is for creating products. Funding is not doing research and writing papers. Funding is for creating products, work together with industry, work together with startups to take it to market. And that approach is very critical. And then that's the reason why we also created a very aggressive startup program. It's the only startup program where we give up to 25 to 50 crores per startup. And it is, you don't need to actually give any collateral for that.
Okay.
And that's the first time in the country something like this was done. The reason why it was done is that quantum is considered an absolutely critical technology for the security of the country.
Right, right. Okay, absolutely. Can I ask you to also elaborate a little bit about ancillary industries that might come up and that might be a choke point? For instance, testing and calibration of a qubit is vastly different from manufacturing it or fabricating it, and that is an industry within in itself. So, is there space also for these kinds of
Oh, yes,
industries to
definitely.
come up?
Definitely. There is space for these kind of things also. See, as we keep expanding our scope, we will need each and every part of it.
Right.
So, somewhere semiconductors also have to play a role in quantum.
Right. And on that,
Unfortunately, today, the semiconductor mission is completely separate from the quantum mission.
okay.
But what
Okay.
we have done to overcome that is that we are setting up fabs within the National Quantum Mission.
Okay.
And these fabs are going to come up with in IISC in Bangalore and a small one in Bombay and a small one in Delhi, but main one
In Bangalore.
in Bangalore. And the whole
Okay.
objective is that whatever chips are required for the development of the quantum computing, we will be able to do internally.
Okay. And do you see then that the semiconductor mission and the quantum mission, at least in the future, when it comes to scaling qubits, they will interact in some way, or there will be
At
some
this moment, it's not happening
No.
because they
Okay.
seem to be completely on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own priorities. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, I think at this moment, it's better to be separate.
Okay.
Only when there is scale that they create, then
Mm-hmm.
only then only this joining will be of great value.
Okay.
See, initially when we started the National Quantum Mission, METI was not even part of the mission.
No.
But then the secretary came up in our board meeting and said, no, it was not. It was a mistake, not for METI not to be part of the National Quantum Mission. And today, CDAC and METI are very much involved in the National Quantum Mission.
Okay. Speaking of other departments being involved with the quantum mission, they are integral now. And you also see in other countries how the US is now adopting a whole of government approach. In the Netherlands, I know that the water ministry, the commerce ministry is already involved in terms of potential use cases. What other departments of the government do you think need to be integrated with the quantum mission, need to come in and support in some way? Is that already?
Four departments are already involved.
Yeah.
Department of Defense is closely working with us. Department of Atomic Energy is closely working with us. Department of Space is also working with us. And now METI.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of cooperation between the different parts of of ministries coming. The big challenge that is going to come up very soon is going to be Q Day, for which we have to prepare.
Can you elaborate on this a little bit for our viewers? When you say it's a big challenge, why would it be a big challenge?
See, till about 2 years ago, the thinking was that quantum computers globally will not be powerful enough to crack our RSA cybersecurity. That was the view 2 years ago when we started the National Quantum Mission. But the view has completely changed in the last 3-4 months. Reason for it is that the progress of quantum computing is quite phenomenal. Literally every week, you see a new announcement. And we also do not know what kind of work China is doing. China is pretty opaque.
Right.
So if they are at a stage where they have a powerful quantum computer, it'll bring down the whole country. So what we decided to do 6-8 months ago was create a task force for writing a policy for India to move from current cybersecurity to quantum secure networks all over the country. For example, if you look at financial systems, you look at electrical grids, you look at telecom infrastructure, you look at security and defense infrastructure, it is very critical that they all become quantum secure.
Right.
Right? So Q-Day is now expected anywhere between 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, if it is 2 years, we are already too late. But if it is 5 years, we still have time to some extent. But for that, we now need to move now. It cannot be tomorrow.
Right.
So this particular task force report is now available with us. We put it out in the for the public to give comments. The comments have already come in, and we are finalizing the report. And hopefully, in our next board meeting, end of the month, we will approve it. And once it's approved, we will make sure that it goes to different government departments and private industry to start working on converting from where they are to post-quantum cryptography.
Okay.
And post-quantum cryptography, we are recommending two things. One, use of software like PQC and use of hardware like QKT.
Right.
We want people to choose one of the two definitely, but a hybrid may be a very good solution because hardware is absolutely secure. Software may be broken still, but hardware is unlikely to be broken.
Right.
The good news for that is that we already have such products available from startups in India. And we have recently tested a 500-kilometer quantum secure network. It was actually done by one of the startups called QNU from Bangalore. And this was done in an army network, and it's proven that it works.
Okay.
So the issue of proving is over. Now the issue of implementation has to happen. And any conversion from existing cyber security to post-quantum cryptography is a 2 to 3 year journey for any corporate. It can't be done overnight.
No.
And also, it will need funding. So they need to provide for extra funding to convert from X to Y. And it's a very major task which people must take up with great urgency because Q-Day is not very far anymore. It's not the 10-year horizon we are talking. And imagine suddenly a very powerful quantum computer comes up in China. It's a great threat for us. Our economy can be destroyed.
Right. So this migration is quite the challenge. Do we already have practical steps or recommendations to do this migration?
Absolutely well defined in the report.
Okay.
Step by step, we have written the time frame and the methodology to convert. So now it's going to be making sure that people start to take it very seriously and to start implementing. And as I said, it's a 2 to 3 year journey, but we must start yesterday.
Okay. Since we're talking about cryptographic standards, I want to make this a little broader into general standards and regulations for quantum technologies. What bodies are involved in the standard setting and making for the country today in the context of quantum? And where do you see there's a gap? What can we do better? How do more industry get involved? What is the state of standard setting?
You see, what we have recommended in our report for implementing quantum security is that we must set up labs to test products and approve them. Now, that's a long process and that will take time. So it's not going to happen overnight. But good news is that there are certain labs that are already available who are able to test these products today. And as a result of that, you can actually be sure that the products will be well defined and well done and well planned and properly secured so that people can start using them.
Okay. So these labs act as sandboxes then for certification and standardization?
Yes. So those will be set up as our plan is there, but that will take at least 1 to 2 years. So in the meantime, we've given an interim solution. And the interim solution is that existing lab in the telecom industry ministry called TEC will take care of it. Already certain products have been certified by them.
Right. All right. Okay. And here's where
We have
actually,
only 2 to 3 years to go for implementing. So we can't be waiting for a lab to get set up.
no, our existing infrastructure is what
Yeah.
we plan
Yeah.
to use. I
Yeah.
understand.
But
And
there's one more important change that the United States has taken up. They are now saying that each and every product in the network should also be quantum secure. Edge products. So edge products like phones, edge products like laptops, edge products like computers, networking systems, all those need to be quantum secure. So not just the network, but the edge products also. So a list of those products we've also included in our recommendations. And what we are saying is that we should develop a quantum chip that can be put inside these products to make them quantum secure.
I see. Okay.
And the good news is that one of our startups has already created this chip.
Okay. That is wonderful news.
Yeah.
Speaking of standardization, I want to connect back to what you said about the government putting out a challenge and the industry moving forward to take part in it and to deliver. We know that recently DARPA has had this quantum benchmarking initiative, and benchmarking generally is starting to become a bigger question in the technical quantum community, at least. What do we in India, given that we're not as advanced, or we have some very amazing quantum startups that are developing processors and networks, but we don't have as many to populate a benchmarking initiative, maybe. But should that initiative come from the government in India? What is the plan for benchmarking?
See, the benchmarking and testing and certification I combine together.
Okay, all right.
So they are all together. And benchmarking is, when you do a product testing, automatically you're benchmarking it against a particular standard. So therefore, I would include that in the lab infrastructure that we are talking about.
All right, yeah.
It has to be initiated by the National Quantum Mission. We
Right.
can't leave it to,
No.
guesswork here. It has to be done properly. And in quantum also, what we are recommending to various institutions is that use Indian technology. Do not depend on imported technology. Because that's very critical if we want to have technology sovereignty. Our biggest concern today, in quantum especially, is that many countries are going to put in controls on exporting of such technology. Because everybody wants to lead here. So whether it's Europe, whether it's the US, whether it's Japan, everybody is going to put certain controls, not just on full quantum computers, but for components of quantum computers. So we are very concerned about it, which is the reason why we are looking at supply chain issues also.
Okay, that makes sense. And I see that very inadvertently, we've moved through the value chain, which is what at QETCI we've been working on. You've spoken about enabling technologies and how semiconductor industry is allied. We've spoken about the hardware itself. We've spoken about now certification, benchmarking, and standardization. Can I ask you about use cases and applications? And can I ask
Very
you,
important point. Very important.
right? And can I ask you from the perspective of somebody who's been speaking about a product nation? You have sort of already mentioned that you're really encouraging and pushing for all of these labs to move to market and productize what they're doing. But in terms of use cases, given that with quantum, there is also a lot of uncertainty, especially quantum computing, with what use cases it can be useful for and how exactly to do it. What is your advice? So how do you see this playing through?
There are many routes to take. The first route that we have taken is to develop algorithms.
Okay.
So we put out a request for people to come in and develop algorithms for us. And that is something that we definitely want to encourage domestically. And that is something that is already being implemented. And we've already selected certain institutions for algorithm development. And our recommendation to institutions was that typically industry and research institution or education should jointly give us proposals,
Okay.
because industry can then take it to market.
Right.
Alternatively, a startup and a research institute can work together and do an algorithm. Because taking it to market is very important. That is how the use cases will happen. And then on top of that are applications and further use cases.
Right.
Those are something that we are already talking to many software companies. So we recently started a program of talking to all software companies, and we invited about 10 of them one-to-one and explained to them where is the opportunity in quantum. And we also emphasized that quantum today is where AI was 5 years ago. So if they enter quantum today, they will have phenomenal benefits of having entered at the right time. Because the interesting part is that if they actually develop products in quantum, then the valuations can be quite amazing.
Indeed.
Because the quantum valuations that you see are only in billions. There's nothing called million. So even the small companies are getting 5 billion and 10 billion type of, valuations. This is exactly what's happened in AI. So now the time is there for the various industries to come together and actually work on developing these with us. So some of them, we are even giving them an opportunity to say, take a TRL3 or a TRL4 quantum computer product and take it to TRL9.
Okay.
So that is something that we definitely want to do. And I would like your organization to also help us with this, because this is the area which is most critical. At the end of the day, how will quantum computers be used are going to be the most important aspect of getting the benefit of quantum technology.
Indeed, yeah. And this is the kind of work QETCI has been trying to do by
Correct.
engaging stakeholders from all over the ecosystem, and now given use cases to also engage other companies working on different problems and to see whether quantum is useful there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other interesting opportunity is going to be quantum and AI.
Right.
Because moment you start to look at quantum and AI, that will have its own opportunities. And as quantum will help AI in a lot of ways. And it is expected that the future of hyperscalers are going to be hybrid. They will be the typical classical hyperscalers and quantum working together to solve AI problems.
And since you mentioned this point, my understanding is that when quantum computers become commercially viable and reliable, when we reach fault tolerance, we will not have a quantum computer doing everything. We will perhaps have in a high performance computing facility a subroutine taken care of by the quantum computer, while there is also a GPU somewhat and a CPU working on different parts of the same problem.
Yes, absolutely. And I see quantum computers helping us reduce the pressure on climate.
Okay, I see.
Because GPUs take phenomenal amount of energy, while quantum computers will not.
Okay, I see. Well, how is our infrastructure ready to start seeing this integration? What do you
At this
think the
moment, we are
challenges are?
still early in the game, but I think there are some initiatives being taken in Andhra and Karnataka to set up data centers
Yeah.
with both classical and quantum computing as hybrid. So this
Right.
thought is already in place.
Okay. Okay. Indeed. Can I ask you, so just one last part of the value chain that I want to touch on is investment and capital. What has to change in India's investment ecosystem for quantum hardware to scale?
Already good initiatives are there.
Okay.
So We have created, as I told you, a startup program which gives up to 30 to 50 crores per startup. And moment we put up 30 to 50 crores in a startup, VCs follow. And it has happened in two cases already. Two of the startups got money from us, and the follow-on money has come from VCs. So this process has already started. One of the things that we have done is that we are also educating VCs about the opportunity of quantum. So we've created a special deck on why should people invest in quantum.
Right. Okay.
And that deck is based on this whole thinking that quantum is where AI was 5 years ago.
Right. Right.
And we are giving that, good views of what are the various quantum computing companies and what kind of valuations they have got. Even a country, at the country level, Australia has gone and bought a quantum computing company. So major thinking is going on around all this quite quickly.
I see. Okay. And this is
And the other part is that, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
The other part is that the new RDI policy has come into place, which is 1 lakh crore fund that has been created for R&D.
Right. Yeah.
So in that also, quantum is included. So if somebody is looking at a 200 to 500 crore plan, 50% of that will be paid by RDI.
Okay. Okay.
So people are already starting to apply. So the Technology Development Board has already put out requests for proposals. And I do know a few of our quantum computing companies and quantum communication companies have already applied for funding. So beyond the 30, 50 crores that NQM is giving,
right,
200 to 500 crores could even happen from RDI.
Okay. Okay. And this is a rather big chunk of capital, which is indeed extremely important.
It is non-dilutive.
Okay. All
This is
right.
the beautiful part of it. So I think it's very critical. But can you give me a 5-minute break?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Sure.
That's
Thank
really doable. So let's talk about skill development and capability. If you can tell me a little bit about what the approach is, but also I have a specific question. Given that at the moment we don't have as much quantum hardware in our country, well-developed quantum hardware. For instance, the number of quantum computing labs that have a dilution refrigerator is, for the scale and size of our country, is quite small still. So how do you do skill development in the absence of such facilities, such quantum labs? Indeed, and I will admit that electronics is a key part, physics is a key part, computer science is a key part, which one can develop with the existing infrastructure. But I mean specifically maybe characterizing a qubit. How do students learn that?
So actually what we did was that last year we went to chairman of AICTE and did an MOU with the AICTE. And we decided that we will do an undergrad program, which will be a minor in quantum. And this will be offered to engineering students in about 100 universities.
Okay, yeah.
So that was approved. And what we have also done is that we are going to give 1 crore per university for buying equipment for labs. So they can actually experience qubits.
Right, right.
So that is the whole idea behind creating this program, so that it is not just a classroom program, it's also got a lab component. So this is approved. And as a matter of fact, the selection for the 100 universities is happening by end of this month.
I see. Okay. That's
And in addition, what we have done is not only have we created the curriculum for it, we've also created a teaching curriculum, including all the teaching programs and tapes, which are actually lectures which have been created. So the whole objective is that if a university wants to implement this undergrad program, they'll get a complete package. Okay, the curriculum and the teaching environment and all the lecture notes and everything. Okay, so that is a complete program. Then post that, 3 months ago, we also approved an MS program. And we will implement that in 25 universities starting this September. So the
Okay.
whole idea here is that through this route, we will create enough future capability for our requirements in quantum. And I think as a country, we, because of our strong STEM background and strong STEM capability, we should be able to create a large number of quantum technology people. And that will give us a definite leg up against a lot of countries. Now, what we are also encouraging universities to do is that since we already have a 8 qubit computer available from a startup, we are also saying you can hire that or
Right.
buy it and start to use that for teaching and research. So it's not that we are devoid of a quantum computer.
No. Okay.
And of course, lots of people are also using it for research by using it on the cloud. So they are actually buying it on the cloud from IBM or some others as well. But that's pretty expensive. That is the reason why we are recommending that we already have a startup making quantum computers of 8 bits. Why don't you buy that? So some of them have already decided to do that. Recently, Triple IT Dharwad has bought one. And Bangalore has recently bought one for another university. So a lot of universities are thinking of buying these technologies. You see, originally my thought was that we should also collaborate with countries like Netherlands, where there is a lot of work that has already been done for quantum. But the challenge that I'm seeing is that everybody is trying to be very secretive
I
and
understand.
everybody is very protective of their technology. If at all, my view was that we should collaborate with countries where we can do joint development, which will help both the countries. It's not that Netherlands will help India. India will also help Netherlands because of our sheer large number of scientists.
Indeed. Indeed. And since we're now talking a bit about geopolitics and the trends that we're seeing, um, at a multilateral governance scale, what is it that we need to do in order to be able to collaborate with countries like this? Like you said, there is a lot of secrecy and there is a lot of talk about sovereign technology. How do you see this progressing and what can we do so that we're able to do this collaboratively?
As I said, my view on this would be that we sign up with certain countries who feel comfortable working with us. And we are a very comfortable country. So we people feel very positive about India. And recently, with the EU agreement being signed, the trade agreement, there's a lot of parallel stuff that is also being discussed in science and technology collaboration. So I think somewhere we should be able to create some joint programs between university to university and between research institutes and research institutes and corporates and corporates. That kind of cooperation can genuinely help both sides. But it has to be a situation where both sides gain. Otherwise, if one side gains, it won't work.
I understand. So you're saying that it will start at the level of research and at the level of
Yeah.
education.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Since we don't have much time left, I'd like to quickly ask you 3 questions to summarize this insightful conversation that we've had. One, in terms of India's hardware past and the policies that held us back sort of back then, what is it explicitly you would say we should not repeat so that we don't end up impeding the development of quantum hardware in the country?
We should not allow to be sign any agreements like what we did with WTO.
Okay.
Those
Okay.
kind of agreements will be detrimental to the growth of quantum computing. And I don't think anything is there. Today, WTO doesn't exist literally.
No.
So I think it's going to be country to country. And therefore, I do not see any serious impediments to the development of quantum computing and quantum networking, etc. And I think there is a lot of opportunity available for our quantum communication products to be sold globally. So what I'm doing is that I'm talking to a lot of the software companies and saying that why don't you pick up the hardware from here and do system integration and solutions for Europe and America.
Right.
Because a lot of the countries do not have what we have.
No, that's indeed that's the case. Can I ask you on the flip side, since you've brought up this trade agreement again, we know that, like you said, countries are secretive. There are now a lot of countries with export control lists that say if it's more than 8 qubits or if it's fault tolerant in any way, you cannot export it or there's regulation to export. So in some sense, the kind of imports that maybe our software industry enjoyed back then, we don't have the luxury of right now because of these export controls. Do you see that impeding the development of quantum algorithms and software in any way?
You see, the way I look at it is that as far as quantum algorithms and applications are concerned, those are mostly done through software products.
Right.
For example, IBM's Qiskit. So, those are available for everybody to use. They're not going to come under controls. Controls will happen for hardware. Controls will not happen for those. So I think that is not a limitation today. And in some manners, if this kind of secrecy and control of exports happens, I think in a manner it will be good for India. Because we will be forced to do what we otherwise would not do. For example, our whole space industry developed under controls. Our atomic energy industry developed under controls. So when you are pushed to the corner, you have no choice. You have to develop.
Okay.
So
And we will
in
develop.
NQM, we are looking at development definitely on our own as much as we can.
Okay. All right. Noted. And finally, it's been 3 years since the National Quantum Mission officially launched. So as chairman of the mission governing board, what's the one thing you feel has genuinely progressed? And what is the one thing that you are looking forward to achieving in the next 3 years?
Well, actually, we started out in January 23. That's when our first board meeting happened. And so it's less than 3 years. But we had a very clear target for each area. And as far as communications are concerned, I think we have actually overachieved. Okay. As far as computing is concerned, we are pretty much on target, I would say. Sensing is also doing extremely well.
Indeed.
They've already created some great products. And recently, IIT Bombay had launched a microscope also, which will be of great value for the industry in terms of being able to look at trapdoors, etc., in a semiconductor chip. So I think I'm quite happy with the progress. But I would like the scientists to be more and more oriented towards products and making sure they collaborate with startups and collaborate with industry to take lab to market faster. That is something that we are not yet good at. We need to improve that quite dramatically. So I'm encouraging all software companies to be part of this whole effort. And I would like all of you to help us get this done as well. Because this integration with large software companies is going to be of value to both. If the software companies tomorrow develop a quantum computer, look at what will happen to their valuations, which are under threat at this moment.
Indeed.
Because of AI. But moment they say, oh, we are developing a quantum computer, suddenly they'll have a very nice pitch to take.
On that note, there is indeed a lot to look forward to. And like you said, there's also a lot for several different ecosystem stakeholders to be part of and to participate and to contribute. So thank you so much, Dr. Chowdhry, for doing this with us, for sitting down, taking some time away from your hectic schedule and having this insightful conversation. Thank you so much.